Because by Thursday of that same week, the same man who lit the match tried to walk it back. Except it was already too late. The damage had been done, and the internet doesn't forget.
Tony Rizzo just shows you that there aren't really many people you can trust in the world of Browns media. After making up out of nowhere a trade rumor that nobody heard of, nobody's confirmed, nobody agrees with, he's here to tell you that all of a sudden no team wants Shedeur. What?
Well, maybe he was brought in to try and help the Shedeur trade go through. By the way, not a lot of takers is what I'm hearing at the moment. We started the week by saying the Browns were taking calls on Shedeur. I'm not sure where that went this week, but I haven't heard any new news on it. Could they bring all four guys to camp? I guess. I don't think it's ideal. And the prevailing thought, at least from the Nationals, I think Mary Kay weighed in on this as well.
This makes no sense for the Browns at all. Why are we just giving him away? He's a guy that you think, the Cleveland Browns, could be your starting quarterback this year. You're just going to trade him for a low draft pick when he's young, when he's developing? Makes no sense. So teams are not going to pay a premium for Shedeur right now. Okay, if they wanted him for higher than a fifth, they could have drafted him. So they're not trading for him in that sense. You'd be giving him away for little to nothing. How does that make sense for the Browns? How does that help the Browns? And people could say whatever they want about Shedeur. You know, I read the comments sometimes. A lot of people disagree with me for thinking that Shedeur has upside. I don't know how you could disagree with that if you watched last season. He has upside. He won 3 times as many games as the other 2 quarterbacks last year. I'm talking about Gabriel and Flacco. Okay, the rookie drafted before him and the veteran that's been around for years. And Shedeur went out there, won 3 games. Those 2 won 1. More deep shots, explosive plays than we'd seen all year in that awful Browns system and supporting cast. So what are we doing? Why is this a conversation to trade Shedeur for a late pick? Doesn't make sense to me.
Nobody saw this coming. Not Cleveland sports radio, not the national NFL analysts, and definitely not the people who spent the last week treating Shedeur Sanders like a garage sale item. Because on Monday morning, one local radio host dropped a bombshell trade rumor about Shedeur Sanders out of nowhere. No confirmation, no sources, no receipts. And every major voice in NFL media, national reporters, beat writers, insiders, looked at that rumor and said the same thing. I've heard absolutely nothing. But here's what makes this story so much bigger than just a bad take.
On Monday, which is known as the weekend news dump, it looks like you got a boring weekend ahead. How about I just start something? The fact that you started it, not a single soul else confirmed it. For you to come back on Thursday and be like, nobody wants Shedeur. Huh? Now it's Shedeur's fault. Shedeur, no one wants Shedeur after you said that they were trading him.
Let's go back to Monday. Tony Rizzo, ESPN Cleveland. A slow news week. Training camp isn't for another month. The NFL calendar hits its dead zone. And instead of just waiting, a radio host decides to manufacture a story. The Browns are taking calls on Shedeur Sanders. That's it. That's the whole thing. No beat reporter had it, no national insider had it, not Adam Schefter, not Ian Rappaport, not even Mary Kay Cabot, who covers this team every single day. Nobody confirmed it. But here's what happened next, and pay close attention to this, because it tells you everything about how the sports media machine works. Within hours, the rumors spread. ESPN Cleveland ran with it, 92.3 The Fan picked it up, pundits who never watched a single Shedeur Sanders snap started ripping him apart on air. Nobody wants him. His value is too low, maybe a 6th-round pick. Hold on, let's stop right there. On Monday, Tony Rizzo says there's smoke. By Thursday, Tony Rizzo says nobody wants Shedeur. Do you understand what just happened? In 72 hours, the same man who said there was smoke turned around and used the absence of fire as proof that the player has no value. That's not reporting. That's not analysis. That's a trap. You create the story, you let the hysteria build, then when nobody confirms it, you pivot, and somehow the player ends up looking worse than before the rumor even started. And if you think that's an accident, you haven't been watching. Because the moment Rizzo floated that rumor, something else started happening. Something even nastier.
Everyone's speaking about it. And this is where the nastiness comes from. Because it wasn't just Rizzo. Right? Remember, it was other people in that ESPN Cleveland circle, right? And it was also 92.3 The Fan. Look at the nastiness. Riz makes a fake trade rumor that nobody confirms. Even Mary Kay, I don't know if you can see the quote. Even Mary Kay says that don't make sense. But you know what happens? Another segment goes on at ESPN Cleveland. And what's his name? Hammer Time? I don't know his name. Hammer Nation, whatever.
The media ecosystem kicked into gear. ESPN Cleveland personalities started grilling Shedeur on air, not asking questions, grilling him. Over at 92.3 The Fan, hosts were on air suggesting that Shedeur had requested a trade. That one got particularly ugly. Now pause. Shedeur Sanders never requested a trade, not publicly, not privately. Nobody confirmed that. Not a single credible source backed that up. But that didn't matter. Because once the original rumor was out there, it became the foundation for every bad faith take that followed. And here's the part that makes your blood boil. All offseason, coaches, teammates, national scouts, all of them had been saying the same thing about Shedeur Sanders. He's grown, his footwork is cleaner, his decision-making is sharper. He's been in that facility every single day. Every single day. New head coach Todd Monken praised his command of the offense during spring practices. Multiple national reporters noted the improvement. Players who share a locker room with this man have been consistently positive, from the kicker to the defensive lineman. But suddenly, because one radio host threw a match into a dry field, all of that growth got twisted into they're just pumping his value up. Come on. Here's where the narrative completely collapsed. Rich Eisen, one of the most respected voices in NFL media, was asked directly about Shedeur Sanders' trade rumors. His answer? I would put zero stock into that. Zero. Eisen went further. He talked about Shedeur's growth being real, the presence, the decision-making, the way he reads the field now compared to last year. He made the point that this Browns draft class might have been the best in the entire NFL, and Shedeur, still on a fifth-round rookie deal, gives Cleveland unbelievable flexibility to build around him. Think about that. Fifth-round pick, still on his rookie contract, year 2, already showing growth that national voices are co-signing. And the local radio response to that was to try to trade him for a sixth-round pick? That's not analysis, that's sabotage. Let's talk about Dak Prescott for a second, because somebody brought up a comparison that needs to be heard by every single person watching this video. Dak Prescott was a fourth-round pick. Nobody was handing him anything. He had to grind. He had to fight. He had to earn every dollar, dealing with an owner in Jerry Jones who was famously reluctant to pay his people. And Dak did it anyway. Now, nobody questions whether Dak Prescott belongs in this league. Shedeur Sanders is a fifth-round pick in year 2, with demonstrated improvement, with coaching staff buy-in, with teammates publicly backing him. The draft slot should be informing his contract negotiations, not his right to compete for a starting job. The two things aren't the same, and mixing them up on purpose, that's not an honest mistake. If there's one moment in this entire story that put the nail in the coffin for the trade narrative, it was Mary Kay Cabot.
Is the voice of reason here?
There's been some smoke in certain places about trade rumors for two members of the Browns quarterback room, and Dylan Gabriel and certainly Shedeur Sanders. I haven't heard anything. But have you, Mary Kay? Has there been anybody who's texting you about teams putting in calls about Shedeur, even Dylan Gabriel?
No, not at the moment. I think that the Browns are pretty committed to their two-way quarterback competition between Shedeur and Deshaun. And I think camp will open up that way,
Jason
and then we'll see how that plays out. Now, when you fast forward to August 30th and it comes time to...
Now look, Mary Kay and Shedeur's camp haven't always been on the same page. She made headlines earlier this year when some people felt she prematurely anointed Deshaun Watson as the Week 1 starter after just a handful of practices. So when Mary Kay Cabot, of all people, is the one shutting down your trade rumor, that tells you everything. Asked directly whether she'd heard anything about teams calling on Shedeur Sanders, her answer was clear: not at the moment. She went on to explain exactly how this works. The Browns are committed to their two-quarterback competition between Shedeur and Watson. Come August 30th, roster cutdown day, they'll listen to offers on any quarterback who didn't win the starting job. That's just standard NFL business. That's not a trade rumor. That's how every team operates every single year. The difference between listening to calls in August and actively shopping your quarterback in June is not a small difference. It's everything. Here's what the anti-Shedeur crowd keeps getting wrong. They're confusing what happens in Twitter comment sections with what's happening inside the Cleveland Browns facility. Those are two completely different worlds. Inside that building, Tyson Campbell speaks highly of him. Denzel Boston, the young receivers, the veterans, the coaching staff. Todd Monken, a guy who's been around elite quarterbacks, keeps coming back with positive assessments. Not one teammate has come out and called Shedeur Sanders a distraction. Not one. And while all this media noise was being manufactured, where was Shedeur? Fresh off a flight, showing up to support his rookies at a community event in Cleveland. Carson Swissinger, Casey Conception, his guys, teammates he didn't have to show up for, but did anyway, because that's who he is inside that locker room. The internet version of Shedeur Sanders and the real version, they're not the same person, and the media keeps reporting on the internet version. Here's the question you have to ask yourself. Why does this keep happening? Every time Shedeur Sanders does something right, it gets reframed as a negative. He improves his footwork, they say it's staged. His teammates praise him, they say it's politics. National media backs him, they say it's hype. He shows up for his community, crickets. At some point, the pattern stops being coincidence, because here's what the football argument actually looks like, stripped of all the noise. Starting Shedeur Sanders in 2026 makes sense for every type of Browns fan. If you believe in him, you finally get to see what he can do with a full offseason, real coaching, and an offensive line that's been rebuilt. If you don't believe in him, you get your answer. Fast, clean, final. Either way, you know what you have. Deshaun Watson is 30 years old. He missed all last season with an Achilles tear. His ceiling with this organization has been established, and it's not what anyone hoped it would be when Cleveland gave up 3 first-round picks to get him. Shedeur Sanders is 23, still on his rookie deal, still developing, still fighting. The math isn't complicated. Whether you love Shedeur Sanders or you're still on the fence, one thing is becoming impossible to deny. Every single week, somebody tries to write this kid off. A trade rumor here, a locker room cancer narrative there, a slow news Monday that turns into a national story by Tuesday. And every single time, the facts come out. The insiders push back, the teammates speak up, the tape shows improvement, the coaches keep praising him, and the story falls apart. That's not luck, that's not PR. That's a young man who keeps doing the work, even when the people covering him would rather talk about fictional trades than real football. Tony Rizzo may have tried to bury the story on Thursday, but he can't bury the receipts. The internet saw it, the fans saw it, the national media saw it, and Shedeur Sanders, he was already back in the facility, getting better. If this video opened your eyes, hit that subscribe button, because we're going to keep following this story all the way to week 1. And trust me, it's only getting more interesting from here.